That's an underrated way of training that we see professionals and high-level guys do all the time that we don't really see beginners do very much. I don't think they understand how beneficial it is. Like we've had Jozef Chen here. He's quite notable for the way he trains and he calls it tinkering, right? And the way he learns a new skill is very interesting.
Welcome to the Partizan podcast. I'm George, this is Ben, and today we're discussing the complete beginner's guide to not sucking at jiu-jitsu.
The first tip I have, George, and the most important, don't focus on doing the right thing. Focus on not doing the wrong thing.
Ben, I've understood maybe 3 words in that sentence. What does that mean, Ben?
Imagine we're playing tennis. I don't
Okay.
know how to play tennis, but just imagine that I'm the tennis coach.
I'm Serbian,
Okay.
so...
If you're learning how to play tennis and every time you serve, you hit the ball into the net,
You cannot be serious! That ball was on the line!
you shouldn't worry about having a complex rally and you having a good backhand. You should focus on not having unforced errors.
Uh-huh.
By unforced errors, I mean errors that you're making regardless of who your opponent is.
Yep.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
And in jiu-jitsu, what does that look like? That looks like giving up underhooks. That looks like not framing properly. What are some mistakes that beginners make that are unforced errors? Those are the main two ones I've noticed are giving up underhooks a lot and not understanding frames.
Classic one is only using their arms. I think that's an unforced error. I mean, that comes with time. It's not so easy to understand that as a beginner. Also, the classic mistake is you're in mount and you extend your arms.
Elbow separation.
Elbow separation,
Yeah.
allowing them to separate your limbs from your body. Also, just falling over really easily. I don't think anyone
Stop
teaches.
falling over.
Yeah.
What are you doing, dude? Just stand up.
Have you tried just not falling over?
Okay, let's make it a bit more tactical here. How do people know that they're making unforced errors? There are 2 suggestions I have with this. The first is to film yourself rolling. And this is daunting for a lot of people, but it's really important because what you think you look like and what you actually look like are often 2 different things. Film yourself rolling and watch what you're actually doing. If you're getting swept, taken down, submitted, try and look at your positioning, your body positioning before that happened and understand why that happened. The second, and this is great if you have more experienced training partners or coaches that you're rolling with, after you train with them, ask them, what obvious mistakes were I making? Was I making any glaringly obvious mistakes that I should fix up?
I would go even more specific and ask them, hey, you submitted me with a guillotine. What did I do wrong? Like something very specific. Like ask something very specific.
Yes.
Try to look at your role very objectively and remember what actually happened. And if you don't know, just start there. You got submitted in a guillotine. You got submitted in a
Probably
heel hook.
5 guillotines.
Yeah. And just ask, what did I do wrong in that specific scenario? Don't just ask, oh, what could I do better? That's too general. You did a million things wrong.
You did a million things wrong. You're actually really bad at jiu-jitsu. Don't have general questions is what George is trying to say.
Yeah.
You hate general questions.
I hate general questions because it's not helpful. I used to do it too.
Okay.
I'd roll with someone really high level and then you always ask them, well, any tips? And they just look at you like you're an idiot because you are.
They're okay, George.
Well, no. I'm talking about this
you
for
were
my
an idiot.
curse. I was an idiot.
Don't
too,
insult
'cause
my audience.
Look, I was making that exact same mistake too.
So
So,
bring it back to a tactical tip. Instead of saying, hey, any tips?
yes,
Say, you've just guillotined me 6 times.
yes,
What should I be doing
yes,
to not get guillotined 6 times?
yes.
And they'll have more of a specific answer.
Exactly. And the recording of rolls, that one's also great. Maybe not as accessible for newbies because you might just join
Just
the gym.
find a
you
friend and give them a
might,
phone.
find a friend. But yeah, it's so helpful.
It is
Like,
accessible. They're just
often I think
scared.
I look like Gary Turner out there, but I watch your back and I look like a retired. I don't know, just a real
retired.
someone that's retired and should have a walking stick.
George, what's your first tip for how to not completely suck at jiu-jitsu?
Yeah. My first tip: find somebody that you enjoy watching. Find somebody with maybe a similar body type, and just try to emulate some of the things they do. Maybe even buy one of their instructionals. Watch their matches. Be inspired by them.
Mhm.
Chances are, if you're a 16-year-old athletic white belt, you'll probably be gravitating towards different moves than your 60-year-old 120 kilo instructor that wants to do maybe half guard,
Yeah, deep half.
deep half, and you're like, man, it's probably just because you're getting taught something doesn't mean that that's what you should be doing. So find people that are similar body types, things that inspire you, things that you find fun. Just play around with that.
Who inspires you, George? Is it
Who
me?
inspires me? Yeah. Apart from Benjamin Marks
This guy.
with his stellar Imanari rolls. Roll the crib.
Roll the clip, Imanari roll.
You know, it changed throughout time. You know, it was Keenan at one stage. I mean, even people like Gary Tonin, you know, you watch them and you're like, man, that guy's so cool and it inspires me. But I couldn't do the things that Gary Tonin could do. So, you know, you go to guys like, you know, Gordon Ryan, they're great because he's not that athletic and he's just similar body type to me. You know,
Gordon Ryan. Oh, wait, what? Are you guys hearing this fucking guy?
I'm not saying, you know, pre-steroids.
Pre-steroid Gordon.
Pre-steroids, I've got the body type of
Pre-steroid Gordon and pre-steroid Craig actually should be studied.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some of the older clips.
Well, yeah, I've got the body type of a 17-year-old Gordon Ryan.
Yeah.
Craig Jones, yeah.
Prepubescent athlete.
Yeah.
Okay. My next tip is if you're not sure what to focus on or you've just started training, first become really hard to submit and then become really hard to pin. And you hear a lot of coaches say this. They say work on defensive skills, but they never actually explain to you why. So I'm here to convince you why you should focus on defensive skills of being hard to submit and being hard to pin. The first reason, and a very important reason, is you're going to spend a lot of time there anyway, because if you've just started training, most people in the room will be better than you. So you'll be spending a lot of time in back control, bottom side control, bottom mount. You might as well get good at it, right? The second and the more tactical reason why you should focus on defensive skills is if you're confident that 95% of the people in the room can't submit you and can't even keep you pinned, you're more likely to pull the trigger when it's time to pull the trigger. You're more likely to shoot that double leg takedown. You're more likely to take a chance on the sweep or take a chance on the pass. Otherwise, if you know in your head, if this guy sweeps me, I'm not getting out. If this guy mounts me, I'm definitely getting armbarred. If you know in the back of your head that's the case, how likely are you to pull the trigger when the time comes? Subconsciously. Not very likely, I think.
Not bloody likely.
Not bloody likely.
I think that's really good advice. I think the reality is, you know, it depends on what your goals are as well. If your goal
to not completely suck.
Yeah, if your goal is to not completely suck,
it is.
But especially if your goal, if you're somebody that you know yourself and you know, I like to get good at things. That's what I find fun. You want to be really good, and you want to get as good as you possibly can get in the shortest period of time. That is the best thing to focus on. But if you're doing it just for fun, maybe just do other things. But that is great advice for people that actually want to get really good really quickly.
If you don't want to get really good, just quit this episode and don't listen to any of this advice.
Yeah, you're probably maybe not
probably in the wrong spot.
Interested. I mean, you can still not completely suck by not following that advice, but it's just not optimal. But I think what you're describing, now I have to what I'm trying to say, Ben, is I just want to practice my rear naked chokes, my heel hooks. I just want submissions. Like, that's all I care about. I've just started jiu-jitsu. I just want to do cool submissions. You're telling me to be disciplined?
No, I'm telling you that to get to the place where you're submitting people, you need to not get pinned and submitted yourself.
Damn it.
That's fucking step one, brother.
Good point.
So I know I love cool shit too. I'm all about submissions. But to get there, if your guard gets passed immediately, you're pinned immediately, and you spend 5 minutes in bottom mount, you're not doing any cool shit. I'm trying to help you get to the cool shit. Trust me, we'll get there, guys. We'll get there. Just focus on this first.
I believe, Ben. I believe. Yeah.
What's your tip, George?
My next tip is get really, or at least decently good at something. So have a focus. And so, for example, have a focus of just attacking the legs. It could be a straight ankle, could be heel hooks, leg entanglements as a general sort of topic or area, and just focus on that for a little bit. Okay. And then the next thing you choose should be something related to that. Okay. So what you'll find is if you're attacking the legs a lot, to escape, people will give you their backs or give back exposure. And then from there, you should start getting good at chasing the back. So you should look at skills that actually connect to each other and that actually mean something from one position to another, as opposed to this week I'm going to look at, leg locks. Next week I'm going to look at front headlocks. Like, that's not connected. And that's great if you want to do it that way. It's just not optimal.
So you've got two things there that I want to dial in on. The first is have one topic of focus.
Yes.
And the second part is your next topic of focus should be interconnected and the next stage to your initial point of focus. So you're making more of a comprehensive game rather than sporadic skills that aren't actually connected.
Exactly.
Does that make sense?
Exactly.
I want to double down on why to have one area of focus, because I completely agree. That's one of my points as well. Imagine did you ever play RuneScape?
No, I haven't.
You'd miss out. RuneScape was RuneScape was, for those who don't know, was an online game where you have a bunch of skills that start at zero, like attack and defense and farming and mining and creating armor and whatever, all these different skill sets. Imagine that you had 20 different skill areas and 20 points to spend on those skill areas. If you put 1 point in every different category, it wouldn't be very satisfying. It wouldn't be very fun because you're just slightly not sucking at every category. And it takes a long time to get good at something if you're dispersing skill points in 20 different categories at once. If you put 20 of those skill points in one category, you're getting noticeably better at that one category. And I think that's the most efficient way to practice it. You're always batching your training into one focus, like you mentioned leg locks. If you're spending the next 4 to 6 weeks purely watching instructionals on leg locks, purely practicing leg entanglements in the gym, practicing leg entries, and studying the best leg lockers in the world, I feel like that's the most efficient way to spend your time training, because your leg locks in 6 weeks will be noticeably better than they are right now. Compare that to today I'm doing leg locks, tomorrow I'm doing mount, the next day I'm doing wrestling, the next day you haven't spent enough time in this area to get quantifiable gains. And I feel like it's such a satisfying and efficient way to train.
Agreed.
So long story short, I agree with what you said.
Agreed, yeah. During that explanation, we'll have RuneScape lightly playing in the
I
background.
do love RuneScape music. Shout out RuneScape. If anyone plays RuneScape, please let me know in the comments, because I actually love that game. Not to go on a tangent too much. The next point I have, George, the secret to skill development is progressive overload.
Tell me about it, Ben.
Here's what I mean by progressive overload. If you went to the gym next door, weightlifting gym, and tried to bench press 150 kilograms in your first session, you'll completely fail and you'll injure yourself and you'll probably quit. If you're learning a new skill set, let's talk about pin escapes as an example. Let's talk about mounted pin escapes. I actually went through this myself. I was obsessed with the kipping escape from mount. I was terrible at it. I couldn't even do it to white belts. I was completely terrible at the kipping escape from mount. So I'd watch some instructionals. I would drill it. But when it came to live training, every single day for 3 or 4 weeks, I started in bottom mount. But I started with smaller white belts. And I practiced the kipping escape on them as much as I possibly could until I felt comfortable doing the kipping escape. Then I would move to slightly heavier white belts. I'd practice my kipping escape. I'd move to smaller blue belts, bigger blue belts. Every single day, as long as I was getting sufficient results in that kipping escape, I would progress in size of my training partner, or I'd progress in skill of my training partner, to the point where we would have visiting black belts and I would ask them to start in mount. And I wouldn't always succeed of course, but I would practice the kipping escape as much as I possibly could, to the point where I felt reasonably comfortable with black belts my size with the kipping escape. As opposed to what a lot of people do when they're learning a new skill set, particularly if you've been training for a little while, is you'll drill the technique and then you'll try to apply it in live training against someone your size and your skill set immediately. And it probably won't work because it hasn't developed to the point where it will work against that person. So what I'm saying is go to the kids class, start bashing the 6-year-olds.
Yes.
And then you bash the 7-year-olds. And then you bash the 10-year-olds, because the 10-year-olds are a bit bigger than 7-year-olds. Just normally they are. And then you progressively get larger in the kids class until they kick you out of the kids class, in which case you go to the adults class, the beginners class. You start with beginners.
Yep.
What are your thoughts on this? Progressive overload is a very normal thing when it comes to weightlifting. It's not really talked about much with jiu-jitsu or martial arts. I think it's an important way to get better.
I agree. You'll often have people see a cool move on Instagram, or they've just watched an instructional and then they try it on like a black belt and they're like, oh, it didn't work.
Yeah, they think the technique doesn't work.
Yeah.
They're like, it doesn't. No, you just suck at it.
Yeah.
It's two different things.
Exactly. Yeah. And what you can do, and this kind of bleeds into my point a little bit, is like you said. So basically, what you're describing is one, taking ownership of your training, two, finding areas. You may not be able to achieve this necessarily in a class, right? So you can do it before class. You can set up mats at home. You can have a good training partner where you can tell them, okay, give me just a little bit of resistance, but like nothing too crazy. And then they can start, progressively giving you a harder and harder time if you do have a good training partner. They sort of let you work their technique a little bit, and you progressively work with specific reactions that are giving you issues, things like this. So
yeah, let's talk about that, because that's an underrated way of training that we see professionals and high-level guys do all the time, that we don't really see beginners do very much. I don't think they understand how beneficial it is. So the way that a lot of beginners train, they'll practice a technique with zero resistance, and then they'll go straight to live hard sparring and say either the technique doesn't work or I completely suck. And they miss out on they will go straight from white to black without looking at the gray zone. Like we've had Jozef Chen here. He's quite notable for the way he trains, and he calls it tinkering, right? And the way he learns a new skill is very interesting. He'll drill it until his body understands it. But as soon as his body knows what to do, he'll have an experienced training partner, and he'll initiate the technique and say, what would you do if I did this? And they'll say, I would clear my knee line. Okay, what can I do to counter your common defense? And you kind of cycle through in slow time, having a conversation with your partner saying, what would you do if I did this? What's your initial reaction if I bridge this way? And then you kind of building a little bit of a tree map, a little bit of a system for that technique, for that concept. It's rare that I see beginners do this, but I think it's worth doing. Even if you might not have the best answer, but to ask the question, what are you thinking about doing when I do this?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, 100%. It takes a bit of maturity to train in that way. I remember actually learning that from Jozef Chen directly when he came to visit GE one time. And we were just doing lots of like really hard positionals. And you do get quite good in terms of just really hard positionals against people. But the problem is you don't have that ability to say, wait, can you give me the exact same reaction again? And you just keep going until you figure out and play around with it. Once you tinker with it a little bit.
I like the tinkering. Because if the positional role is 100%, both of you might not actually realize what happened in that exchange. That's another point too. We'll talk about training intensity, because again, and I understand why, because people haven't really developed the intuition to how to scale back. But if your training intensity is 90%, 100%, to the point where you're completely exhausted after the roll, it's unlikely you kind of have the cognitive bandwidth to process what's happened in that roll. And a good test of this is after the roll, if the coach asks you, hey, what happened in that roll? If you can't tell them, it might not have been the best role for skill development, because you don't have any data on what actually just happened. But if you've backed it off to 60%, 70% intensity, slowed it down, been a bit more deliberate with what you're doing, you start to pick up like, oh, he's clearing my foot off his hip really well, and he's doing a really good job of off-balancing me from single leg X. Now you have something to work with, and now you can start to tinker. Instead of like, what happened? Oh, he just swept me. He's fucking good. George is good. Instead of just saying, George fucking swept me. He always sweeps me. Oh, I suck. You understand, George is doing a really good job of off-balancing me from single leg X guard. I should ask him about that. You say, hey, George, what are you doing to off-balance me from this position? The best thing about jiu-jitsu, one of the best things, your training partners will tell you everything. They'll tell you how they beat you.
If they're good.
If they're good and they're good.
They're good training partners.
They should. No, who's holding secrets? If people are holding secrets from you, being like, I'm not going to tell you, you fuck that guy. Assuming you have a good gym and good training partners, they'll tell you exactly what they did to beat you if you ask the right questions. And they might even offer some suggestions on what you could be doing better. But these conversations need to be initiated by you a lot of the times.
Yeah, agreed. So basically the moral of the story is slow it down, tinker with your training, take charge of your own training.
Take ownership and accountability.
Try get training in either before or after class or at home. That's pretty much my point.
Pick one area of improvement. Pick one area of improvement
Yeah.
and focus on that until you get noticeable gains to the point you're almost bored of it.
Yeah.
And then you can move on.
Yeah. Keep it fun at the end of the day.
And keep it fun.
Ultimately, you want as much mat time as possible, train as much as possible, think about jiu-jitsu as much as possible, study it, watch instructionals.
Drop out of school.
Quit
your job.
Break up with your girlfriend.
Yeah, dude, who needs girlfriends, really?
Stop talking to your family.
Who needs family?
Exactly. Unless it's a twin that does jiu-jitsu with you, you shouldn't.
That's
cut
the
them
best
off.
base to actually get better at jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, that's the secret. Yeah, if you could just get someone exactly. No, but this is where a lot of times people will like go to big teams, right? And they just talk about how much they've improved from this specific team that they've gone to. I think what a massive factor that we don't really talk about enough is what really helps is when people go to these professional teams like New Wave, Roka, B Team, whatever it may be. Everyone in that room has the same goal as you. So you're constantly exchanging ideas with these people that have the same goals. They're willing to come in on Sundays just the way you are. I think this is a problem, if you're in a gym where you're getting frustrated because you don't have any training partners, you're probably in the wrong gym and you need to find somewhere. It's not the gym's fault. It's just you need to find a gym where the people around you have the same goals as you.
That's a really good point. Be in the environment where people around you have a shared goal. If you're in a self-defense gym and you really want to learn competition style leg locks, you can't force the people around you to change the way they train. And you shouldn't force the people around you to change the way they train. You should instead find an environment that supports your goals. Another point that just came to mind is sometimes you only need one really good training partner as well, where you're both, at the very least, you need one reliable, really good training partner, particularly someone that's around your skill level, maybe a little bit better, and you can both help each other get better, help someone else to get better as well.
Big time.
Big time.
Yeah, you only need one training partner. Like
you can only train with one person at a time.
Yeah.
Unless you're doing like some fucking Krav Maga 5-on-1 bullshit. No, shout out Krav Maga, we love you.
This is true. Yeah, you want to end it there?
Let's wrap it up.
If you know any other ways to get good quickly and not suck at jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, if we missed out on any points on how to, what's the complete guide to not sucking at jiu-jitsu?
Yeah.
If that wasn't complete enough, let us know in the comments what we've missed.
Yeah.
But thanks for listening. What would you do? Like, comment, subscribe. Peace.